Okay, so in this little section, we're going to look at the question, why did Khrushchev send missiles to Cuba in 1962? And this is worth 6 marks. So in terms of 6 basic points we can look at, Khrushchev wanted to produce more nuclear warheads to close the missile gap. The USA had missiles in Turkey and Western Europe. The USSR had more medium-range missiles than the USA. Soviet missiles on Cuba would make Khrushchev stronger. Khrushchev wanted to defend Castro, and Khrushchev wanted to seem strong at home. So how do you apply all of those to a 6-mark question? Well, the simple answer is you don't need to. Every question has a format. The format for a 6-mark question: to get 4 marks, you explain 1 point. To get 5 marks, you explain 1 point in detail. And to get 6 marks, top marks, you explain 2 points in detail. So if we flick back to what these 6 points are, as you can see, you only need to write about 2 of them. Only write about 2 of them. So effectively, you only need to know a third of the points to do with this question to get 6 out of 6. So how can we apply that knowledge practically? We're going to have a quick look at a model answer that the exam board provided. So Khrushchev sent nuclear missiles to Cuba in 1962 because he wanted missiles as bargaining power. So let's break down what we've got there. Straight away we've started linking our answer back into the question. Khrushchev sent nuclear missiles to Cuba in 1962. We're just parroting back the question to the examiner. We don't need an introduction. And we've got straight into our first point. Because he wanted the missiles as bargaining power. So that's our first reason why Khrushchev wanted to put missiles on Cuba. But that's not enough because that's not giving us detail. So now we need to expand on that explanation. We need to give the detail to get us to the top marks. If he had missiles on Cuba, threatening America, he could agree to remove them in return for American concessions in Turkey, where America had missile bases on the borders of Soviet territory. Okay, so breaking that down again, we've picked out the start, linking it back to the question. We've given our first reason and we've expanded that. We've given the detail. He wants the missiles as bargaining power. Why does he want them as bargaining power? Because if he has missiles on Cuba, then he can possibly persuade the Americans to remove them from his border territory. Now, I'm going to deviate. I'm going to move away slightly from what the exam board have given in their model answer, because I think there's another point we can link in quite nicely. This would also help Khrushchev at home because it would be seen as a victory and make him look stronger on the international stage. Now, that's a bonus point. We're going on. In fact, in some ways, we're moving on to a different point entirely. But the reason I've put this in, the reason I put this bonus point in, is because I think it links in quite nicely. You're giving the examiner an example of how you've got some wider knowledge. It makes him look stronger on the international stage. And remember, so much of the Cold War is basically about trying to look good to the rest of the world. Kids in a playground, remember, they're scuffling and they're fighting. They want to look good. So, break down what we've got so far. We've got a nice, crisp introductory sentence that's basically linking back to the question and get straight into our first point, bargaining power. We've then got the detail. Why does Khruschev want bargaining power? And just to try and get the examiner on our side, we've got a bonus point. So what do we need now to get us onto the 6 marks? Also, he wanted to test the inexperienced Kennedy and push him as far as possible. Let's break it down again. There we go. Straight in. The next reason he wanted to put missiles on Cuba was because he wanted to push Kennedy as far as possible. Now we need to add in the detail. Why does Khrushchev think he can push Kennedy? Kennedy already had suffered an embarrassment with regard the Bay of Pigs. Khrushchev was so concerned about the missile gap between the USSR and the USA that he would seize any opportunity he could to close it. So, breaking that point again in the same way. Let's get the green highlighter. Kennedy had suffered, and he wanted to push Kennedy. Why? Because he had suffered an embarrassment with regard to the Bay of Pigs. Remember, Kennedy had ordered the invasion. He'd agreed to the invasion of Castro dissidents, and it had failed. So Kennedy was looking weak. He was looking embarrassed. Pushing that further on, he saw a glimmer. Khrushchev saw a glimmer of hope, and that glimmer of hope was if he could push Kennedy so far that he would back down, then it would be a way of closing the missile gap. So the Cuban Missile Crisis, from this answer, is about two things: removing missiles from Turkey and trying to close the missile gap in any way possible. And that is it. That is how you answer this 6-mark question.